Hello, hello, hello. It's been a while since I've done this, and I'm assuming there'll be a little lag. I will wait patiently for people to show up before I, you know, do this. It's been a week. It's been a heck of a week, and I know a lot of us are in um, transition mode, for lack of a better term, and and with Biden now in office and the uncertainty of the vaccine, there's a lot to talk about. Um, So yeah, this is Ron Zakai. This is a little gay guide, and I am. Hey, happy Friday! Thank you, Rick. I wanted to do a little bit of a kind of like a generic ask me anything. I've done that about 2 months ago, and it was kind of fun just to hear the questions from other people. And I'm already seeing people showing up. Thank you. Um, So yeah, I don't know where to begin. Do we begin with the vaccine, or do we begin with the fact that Trump is not in office and we are in a much, much, much better mental place than we were before? I think one of my better analogies were um, a lot of people feeling like they came out of an abusive relationship. This sense of a dark, dark blanket that enveloped all of us has been lifted, and we only now recognize just how much of our mental fortitude and energy and just well being was occupied by this monster in the White House that just left. Um, and it's funny because you know the day passed or the second day passed. We're now in a position that we realize just how damaging that incessive, never-ending flurry of insults and pain and agony that we were experiencing was downright abusive and downright painful. Um, so, yeah, we were in an abusive relationship with our own government, and I think many of us just recognize that. I'm, I'm answering people on the side. Uh, any questions? I can I can keep my usual monologue when it comes to what I'm feeling. Um, what's the reality? So one thing that's very very troubling when it comes to this administration, and I'm talking the current one, is the dumpster fire that was 2008, the recession and the mortgage crisis that Obama inherited, and then his sense of needing bipartisanship. Um, really really charted the way for a very inane dialogues and conversations because I honestly personally believe that Obama could have done a lot better. And then we fast forward to where we are now, which is with Biden and his administration, we are so much worse off. I mean, yes, you can kind of tout that the Dow Jones is doing great, but the reality is so different than that. The reality is the damage of 1,000 to 3,000 judges, three Supreme Court justices. It's downright insurmountable, if not extraordinarily difficult. So, looking at what we're doing as a country, um, and seeing this level of engagement, that by the way makes me hopeful. I'm a sucker for silver lining, and the executive orders that we've seen just now, just literally in the last 2 days, are a really really good start. So the dumpster fire is being mitigated by policy and competence, and wow, just how amazing those two words just feel. It's a lot. So as we go forward, I think if any of you ever listens to Pod Save America or even their interviews with I think Stephen Colbert, um, the reality is engagement. The reality is nothing is going to really change or better unless we stay this attuned to what we're doing with our country, to what we are either participating by raising our voices and sending messages to the senators and engaging in the system as a whole and literally just voicing our opinions, whatever they are, in a louder manner and in a more active and participatory manner, then we have a chance to take this road that is better, which is fixing what was broken, which will take, unfortunately, a significant amount of time on one hand, and then on the other hand, maybe building for a better future, which I think is what most of us want to believe we can and should do. So yeah, it's a daunting task to think that Biden can solve or will solve everything, but it's also very much amazing to feel the relief, and I'm not remiss in saying relief, of living this abusive relationship with our government and for Mr. 45. So I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful. Shift conversation into COVID and vaccination and life in general. I wanted to share one that I think all of us, to some degree, are feeling right now, which is this is the most difficult period, I think, of of being in this quarantine state. Um, and I will actually answer pause and answers lose question. You're asking how does the current administration promote needed policy changes, resets while promoting bipartisanship? I I hope the temperature in the room has fallen enough that insurrection is enough of a push or a motivation to be more bipartisan. And if Mitch is such a slimeball, but even he said that the mob was incited by Trump. So like policy theater aside, which is what Mitch does often, and then just continues to be the Grim Reaper of any bill, but now he doesn't have the Senate. So back to the question, I don't think bipartisan will happen. I think we're being slightly optimistic, or overly optimistic in how would this go. Now, if Trumpism actually becomes its own party, and I think that does relate to the question, if Trumpism becomes its own party, then there is an actual problem, much like the Tea Partiers, pardon me. They had to actually make policy changes within the GOP to bring them in, much like the evangelists bringing them in. I don't think Trumpism would allow any kind of bringing in of anyone. Um, I don't think. I don't think. I think it would actually splinter. But then again, we've been in this situation so many times that it feels both Sisyphean and false hope. And I don't want to be an echo or a plus one to that narrative of false hope. Um, so I'm hoping Trumpism would splint the GOP. I'm hoping there'll be some form of inner dialogue in the GOP that will force them into some form of sanity. But the reality is, we're in a world, this post truth world is so dangerous that we got to the point of now asking, can we build a world from a combined set of facts? And that alone is an argument that we're having across the board, both right and left, both Democrat and Republican. So if we can't even agree on the same set of facts, I don't know how we can ever get to this bipartisanship. I don't. Now, when it comes to policy and Biden, um, I think is going the right direction. I mean, I'm actually surprised, thoroughly surprised, by how many of the quote unquote progressive policies he's actually enacting right off the bat. So, if anything, we're seeming to be heading in the right direction, which is center left in Europe, and left here. So back to the vaccine and my other soliloquy topic. Um, I will read this. A lot of trust with the government has been broken. There are a lot of areas that need therapy. I hope an extreme knee-jerk reaction doesn't happen. Exactly. Thank you, Linda. that is where we are. And I think if Trumpism actually splints the GOP party, there will be a knee jerk reaction, and we need to address the knee jerk reaction both in terms of policy and parties, but also in the many that have actually recruited to that specific cult. So I don't want to call it anything less than a cult because it isn't. It's a cult. If they are now comfortable, and they, because I'm not a cultist and I don't belong to that cult, if Trumpism is now feeling emboldened enough to step up into terrorism, step up into what I would consider what has been there, all those lone white males in a shooting, in an active shooting situation, which has been our terror for pretty much forever. If we put them finally under one category, which is domestic terrorism, if we take that step, which I hope we do, it seems like Biden and especially Kamala would actually paint them and label them as terrorists, which I think is it's kind of a must at this point. If we go that far in terms of policy, that knee jerk will be met with, at the very least, the right definition, which I think both mainstream media and our social media have never really taken that on. It's always been the lone wolf, yet somehow they have exactly the same profile, which is infuriating. So yes, I'm hoping policy will come both from the side of healing, which is bringing people together and talking about the things that 80+% of us want, which is universal health care and extension on unemployment benefits, some form of relief on college debt, and so forth and so on. And it's starting to look that way on one hand, and then there's for policy wonks, there's a much 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 bigger array when it comes to all the offices and all the committees and all the agencies that are now need healing because they've been being dismantled by their own governance and their own leaders for the last 4 years. So that's the healing part. And then the third part, which is our own personal healing. Um, pause. I'll pause as I read something. What do you think about Republican versus Democratic approach to bipartisanship? Yeah, that's looking at the numbers and looking at the data, we're not in a good place. And I am so worried that all this conversation about bipartisanship will actually shoot us in the foot like it did with Obama and Biden Obama and Biden back in 2008 when we actually had the three branches of government ish. And we can do a lot of policy good, but it ended up being such a slog to get both the relief bill and the Affordable Care Act. It was just, I don't want to go through the same exercise personally. I don't want the country to go through the same exercise. So, I Republicans' approach to bipartisanship is talk one way and completely lie, and then in the other way do the opposite of whatever they talk about. So, like all this talk of unity of them right now, I just get disgusted. People like Hawley and Cruz and um, Graham. I just can't. I think we collectively got to the point that we saw through the veil. We've unsheathed the curtain of Wizard of Oz. We've seen the levers. We are annoyed, and we don't want to continue. I don't feel they're gonna do something remarkably different or new than they have done in the last 30, 40 years, which is basically lie, speak to three or four bullet points at any given moment, and divide and conquer. And they play to that really divisive base. And I don't see them changing that ever. So, and by the way, I think Democrats playing to that bipartisanship would be a horrible, horrible, horrible lie. Like it will be just a loss of time and energy. I think we have a bigger fish to fry when we have the all government in our hands. Um, I'm reading another one. Uh, we tried very hard to kill you. Yes, you did. Let's be friends now. Yeah, well, we tried to kill you, yes, but let's be friends now. That's the Republicans now. Oh, unity. F that. I mean, seriously, just fuck that. That's not how we are. We have lost too much. We have lost too many. under that specific banner. We shouldn't. Um, Thank you, Linda. The abusers are saying they have changed, but that's trying to hide behind the shell promises till they can do it again. I would plea to everybody that was engaged in the process before to stay engaged, because we shouldn't let our elected officials fall for the same shit again, which is the promise of bipartisanship. And that is a lie. And it will be, we know, but they basically incited insurrection, and Hawley and Cruz have zero ramification. There are no impeachment on either of them. There is no censor. There's not even a smack on the hand. They're just going to continue exactly spouting the same exact nonsense in the same exact way, and that is insurrection. So insurrectionists and seditionists are in the White House right now as senators, and they have zero repercussions for what they've done. Even the mere notion that they're going to do something different is surreal to me. Um, I'm going to Rick for a second. We try to kill you again. First chance we get. What if we shared power? Yes, we're going to feed your dentals to your children. Yeah, I don't. We need to learn from repetition. We need to learn from history, and it doesn't necessarily repeat itself exactly, but it definitely always rhymes. And at this point, we need to know what the Republicans do, which is rape, pillage, plunder, and disguise it in hate and othering, and that's it. And that's all they do. And they can talk whatever they want to talk. Their actions speak loud enough. Um, I will shift the topic. My apologies to the vaccine and where we are just mentally. Um, for most people now, knowing that somewhere between April and October is where they're going to get the vaccine, and October is where probably we're going to get most of us enough to go to some semblance of real life. This little stretch, little, it's not so, it's so much not little. It's egregiously longer, because there are no meanings to days or nights or weeks or months. It's all blur, and for most of us, good or okay are kind of synonymous, and the rest of it is dancing with much darker inner demons. Um, I would say hang in there, but it will be a flat statement. Knowing that there is an end to some sort of a painful process, and being in that process is the hardest part. In other words, like let's say we were running 10 miles, a 10-mile run, and somebody at mile 9 saying, well, you need 7 more. That's where we are. And even though we thought there's like a light at the end of the tunnel, now we're seeing that light. And I'm not going to quote that amazing poem, Amanda, I believe, Amanda Gordon from the inauguration, but we need to be that light for ourselves, and this is the toughest time for, I think, most of us, because there is a sense of when this is going to end. There is a sense of when we're going to see something different, or other than these four walls, and yes, I'm reading what you're saying, Linda. Um, Starbucks has set up a better system, give out vaccine. Yeah. uh, a cup of Joe and some vaccine. Yeah, it baffles me. By the way, just FYI, it also shows all the flaws and holes in a for-profit healthcare system, because we could have gone to mass distribution a lot quicker, ramp up production a lot quicker, if we had something akin to either single payer or universal healthcare. But we don't. It's for profit. So even just managing the distribution points and the distribution centers, as we're seeing, it's a logistical nightmare. And there's no doubt in my mind that giving it to Starbucks, giving it to Amazon would do a much better job. But again, it's a check being cut to those companies as well. So there's like this inner dialogue that hate, this conflict between late stage capitalism, which is where we are. Late stage capitalism is dictating the rollout for the vaccine that will give us normal life. Think how insane and convolutedly evil that is. For-profit companies are going to benefit from the fact that we have logistical nightmares in terms of major distribution. So it's we seeing the flaws and the chinks in the armor, so to speak, of what late stage capitalism is, with the combination, of course, with healthcare, and and we've seen it very very grimly. So going to that place mentally to where we are, which is, I think a lot of people have to do this mental exercise of, this is the last stretch of something that was so much more difficult, and before we knew when it's going to end. But now it suddenly is a new shade of difficult because we know where it's going to end, but we don't know when we're going back to real life. When we can hug our loved ones, when you can go back to the dance floor or be with our friends or be with our family and loved ones. So it makes this period of 4 to 6 to 7 months so much more difficult, to a lot of people, because just, people got tired. People are tired. People are exhausted. And I can imagine being even in a position that's less privileged than mine. I can be at home and talk to you, which is extraordinarily privileged. Uh, what about the ones that are on the front lines? My boyfriend is at work. My husband is at work. What about the people that have to be in front of risk? And now we know that there are much more contagious strains out there. Thankfully, they fall still within the vaccine's umbrella. Um, I'm reading. You would think that all the movies and shows of virus, they were just brainstorming what to do. Yeah, the orgy of incompetence that we're seeing and have seen in the previous administration is yeah, it's baffling and it's stupefying. I mean, because every single time we thought there's a new low, and we've reached some form of a rock bottom, there is this extra layer of rough and tough and horrible, incendiary, evil, just evil. I would define it as sociopathic, and incompetent, which is a horrible combination. But here we are. But again, if we want to stay on the positive, which is often where I go to, we have an administration now that is fully capable of doing something significantly better, and in within, I would assume, 3 months, they'll get a grip on both the logistical distribution and the reality of what to do with the vaccine. So between now and the other two vaccines, we probably will be fine come 3 months time. Um, so and by the way, I know Biden's team, as you see in the executive orders and so on, is rolling out policy that basically they've been working on for a very, very long time. So the policy element of enacting the policy, it's already been rehearsed with, the Biden team. There's no doubt in my mind. Um, I'm really curious who they're going to prosecute and how in the coming, in the coming month or so. The first 30 days are very interesting in a sense of executive orders versus not. Um, and as we're seeing this unfolding, by the way, ain't it fun to be in this position of, and yes, I'm going to treat it as a delight, to be in this position of, we don't need, um, to worry about what Trump might do. We're in a position of saying former president. We're in a position of saying what this administration is going to say policy wise. Like, I feel extraordinarily privileged, extraordinarily within gratitude to have this administration on the wheels. Uh, it's just such a relief, such an extraordinary relief. So between the relief of exchange of administration, between the third vaccine probably being approved really soon, the Johnson & Johnson one, and lastly, us basically, uh, seeing the last stretch of this insane pandemic, um, things are looking up. I know that I was mentally, a lot more relieved and less occupied and less frantically afraid, uh, just from when I was 2 days ago. Um, if there aren't any more questions, I will keep it to the 30 minute mark. And if you do have questions, I don't mind running a little bit over. It's been a delight to do this. I freaking love this. Um, so yeah, I will give you a bit to ask anything, and if you don't have anything to ask, I will probably wrap down at the 2:30 mark ish. Harking back to a previous point, by the way, I don't buy bipartisanship. I really think that at this point, because we are the abused party here, the best course of action is to ask them to have overtures of giving before we accept any rhetoric. So, in other words, I would wait for actions from the Republicans that are bipartisan by any bill that's being presented, or anything actually that makes actions in any of the governing bodies that actually shows that bipartisanship is on their plate. I would not buy any rhetoric whatsoever. I would assume that they are here to jeopardize everything and anything. So yeah, the way for me to solve bipartisanship in a way that's beneficial for everybody involved. I'm talking both Republicans and Democrats. In other words, if there's like Trumpism and they want to split away from that and be rational, maybe. And if they want to do that, they need to do things. So, in other words, when a bill being presented in the House, I want to see more than 10 Republicans on it, and so forth and so on. Like literally doing things that show that there is a semblance of center or semblance of bipartisanship, not by words, but by actions. Um, yeah. On that note, between vaccines and the end of the dark tunnel that it's the COVID pandemic and our sheltering in place, to bipartisanship and and how to think about it. Uh, I don't see any more questions. I will say have a wonderful, loving weekend. I hope you're taking care of yours and being taken care of yourself. Uh, Much love. This has been Ron Zakai, Little Gay Guide. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Oh, before we go, I was wondering if Trump impeached or will be called to trial as crimes against humanity, and his people are starting to make crazy choices, likely of him having lost his mind. So, I have no doubt that a rich white guy will not get prosecuted no matter what, and if he does, he's not going to spend much time in jail. If you look at any other from this administration that has been in jail, they've been there for months and then left. So I don't think that will happen. I don't. We don't have a good history of rich white men, hetero men, spending time in jail in this country. So that's my quick 2 cents on that. On that note, have a good weekend, everyone. Love you. Take care.